This is part two of the civil rights. Here's the problem. What I want to talk about right now is the fact that another thing that the civil rights movement and the laws that was passed in 64 and 65, what it really did was it took away a further identity from the African American, so-called African American black individual. Instead of the individual becoming just an American, being connected to the land, it takes on the persona of something else, of African. So-called white people, which is I will use as, I'm going to refer to them as Caucasian, rarely, if ever, call themselves European American. They call themselves American. They'll use white American when it's brought about to instill a racial issue or escalate a racial, abnormality to bring about strife. But other words, they don't use the term white American. They use the term American. When they say American president, they don't say white American or white senator. They use American or maybe a European descent, but usually it's just American. Well, the people that call themselves black in the United States, we refer to ourselves as Afro-American, African-American, Black American, but we rarely ever just say American. I'm an American. There is a place called America. It's a country called America, which I have roots here, indigenous roots here. Believe it or not, I am not from Africa. I am not going back to Africa to live. And I want to get something straight here. What has Africa done for us? Has Africa donated money? Has Africa sent soldiers to the mainland of the United States of America to fight on our behalf? When Africans come over here, do they unite with us in our fight against what we call white supremacy, which doesn't exist? Do they or do they not? Why are we so much on the bandwagon? Well, I'll tell you why. Just like I did yesterday, the first part about the civil rights movement and the civil rights laws being really the issue of our problems. It's because we have segregated or been segregated from everyone else and become an eyesore, a different person, a new creation, a recreation from the original. We don't consider ourselves indigenous or aboriginal. We don't even call ourselves native. We reserve that for somebody else that supposedly came over here via the Bering Strait some 1,000 years ago, which basically is a lie. Because all of the people that they call themselves Native Americans are nothing but Europeans disguised as so-called Indians. Okay? They're not Asiatic. That's besides the point. I'm not going to go there on that tangent. I want to stick strictly with the subject at hand, the topic, and that is the difference between other people and the so-called African American person or persons in the United States. We are American. Whenever we therefore call ourselves and start saying that we are American, and we stop putting the name or the label black, and we don't allow others to label us black, or African American, Afro-American, Negro, colored, or none of that stuff, we may start getting somewhere. First and foremost, we must try to not allow labels to therefore determine who we are. Labels that have no veracity or legitimacy whatsoever to speak on our behalf. When we stop allowing other people to give us titles, then we can get somewhere. And stop accepting these titles. And not only that, stop accepting so-called leadership. We don't need leaders. We need followers. We need followers of the light. We need people looking for the truth. We don't need leaders. That's another problem. Every time you look around, we're looking for a leader. Who's going to lead us? You lead yourself by becoming a follower of the light and the truth. You don't follow another man or woman. That has been a failure. It's not the answer to our issues. It's not the answer to anyone's issues. It's not the answer to the Caucasians, the Arab, the East Indian, the Asian. It's not the answer to anybody. Lead yourself by being a follower of the truth and the light. Once you begin to follow, you're seeking, you're hungry, you're thirsty. But whenever you have a leader, someone put up there in front of you on the podium to so-called lead you and take you somewhere, you lose the fight. You lose your hunger. You lose your thirst. You lose your mobility because you have accepted this person or persons are going to take it upon themselves to do it for us. And it also breeds laziness. It breeds incompetence. It breeds irrelevancy. It breeds an ability to think for oneself, to do for oneself, basically because one doesn't believe in oneself. Because one accepts that they are a subordinate and insubordinate to anything that they know. You become everybody's baby. You no longer are a parent. You become a baby. You regress. You go from being an adult to a child. The problems that we face are very simple. The biggest problem, though, it is complex because it is not understood and it's not explained and it's full contextual of understanding. We don't understand. And without understanding, a man cannot go anywhere, no matter how much knowledge he may have. If he doesn't understand the knowledge that he possesses, he is just as good as a man without it. Just as good. He's just as bad as a man without it. A man that does not have the understanding of his knowledge is no better than a man that has none at all. He's actually worse because he possesses something but can't use it. So what I'm saying is this. Stop putting yourself in a box. We don't need Africa to free us. We don't need the United States government to free us either. And we don't need the leadership to free us. We need followers to free us. When we begin to follow our light, when we begin to go out and look for the light and search for the light and the truth, then we can get somewhere. But we have got to start to becoming conscious of who we are and who we're not. And we're not black. We're not African. We are American. There's no place called black. There's no place called African American. This is the problem with us. We have segregated ourselves from our own selves, from our own land. We don't own anything because we don't identify with it. We don't identify with the land of America. We're trying to identify with something, a place called Africa. Excuse me. We're trying to identify with a place known as Africa. And we wasn't born there. We have no earthly, legal standing in Africa. We are not citizens of the land, but we are citizens, indigenous citizens of land of America, although we are not a part of America because we have been segregated from America based on our own ignorance, the leadership, and the establishment called the government that has taken us out of the mix. But we are not, I will quote, we are not an American. We are American born and bred. We just are not connected legally. And we don't understand legally that we are. And we don't act that way. Because once we act as if we are, and we claim our birthright, and we start acting on our birthright, then we'll be able to go somewhere. Then we can become internationalized. Then we can connect with Africa and Asia and Eurasia and Europe and Australia, New Zealand, and all the other continents in the earth. But until then, we have no standing, not only in the national community, but in the international community, and vice versa. We have to have an identity. We have to be connected with something that is somewhere that is legit. Then we can talk. But stop calling yourself a name that doesn't exist. And stop holding on to these false hopes of needing leadership. We don't need leaders. We need followers and seekers of the light. Peace.